Perfect, thank you. So this session is around building your own virtual assistant, which is a new solution that we announced yesterday. So it's kind of hot off the press. It's been a busy couple of months. Who was in the session that I did with Yohai just before? Few of you. Okay, good. So I teed up this conversation. So we've got this 20 minutes to go into a little bit more kind of detail. So I'm an architect in the conversational AI engineering team. That's bot framework, Azure Bot Service, language understanding, and so on. So actually, Satya very kindly teed up a bunch of this yesterday when he discussed BMW, around the need for BMW to actually own their experience inside their product, which is a car in that case. And whilst automotive is seeing a lot of interest in what we're doing here, we're talking with a lot of the OEMs, it has far broader reach. So whilst you kind of hear this talk, yes, automotive, but actually it has far broader reach, which hopefully by the end of the talk you'll understand. And really the driver behind this is we're building on top of the bot framework and Lewis and all those good things. So we are building a solution on top of the Microsoft platform. So the key first tenet of why this strategy matters and why customers are interested in it is primarily around controlling their user experience. So if you take Cortana or Alexa or Google and you build a skill and you extend that out to your customers, then that customer has to say something like, hey Alexa, ask your company name to go and do something. So you've got this kind of disintermediation there. And it's not a particularly natural experience where people will just ask a question and expect the device just to go figure it out. So controlling the experience, that's the name, the voice, the personality, all aspects of the persona are really, really key to customers looking at this particular area. The other one is data ownership, and this is a really great big red line for a lot of our customers where they're saying, great, I want to use this technology, but I want to own the data about my customers. So my customers are going to ask questions, their behavior, the things they're asking, the entities, and all those other good things. I, as a customer, should own that, and Microsoft or other companies should not have that data, should not train their model, should not sell that data and do all those other things. And that's actually a key kind of fundamental pillar of our cognitive services anyway that we've kind of inherited by building on the bot service and Lewis and so on as well. And that data is obviously key to improving your experience. The other one is actually surfacing your assistant wherever it makes sense for your end users. Now that can be web chat on your web page. That can be in Teams. That can be in Skype. It can be inside of a mobile application. So this is something that people don't always realize. You can actually surface this inside of a mobile app, a conversation in text or speech. But also a device. So we have a direct line API, which is part of the bot framework, which is basically a REST API. It supports WebSockets and so on. It actually lets you start a conversation and exchange messages. And those messages that go back and forth are not just text. There's actually a fairly complex activity schema where you can provide attachments, so you can, and adaptive cards, which will let you render a user experience across different devices. So it's a pretty extensible framework that you can integrate and do your own thing with. Another aspect which is really important is this assistant should be aware, if it's on a device, it should be aware of the context of that device and that user and that ecosystem. So if it's in a car, it would be kind of handy if the assistant knew where you were going, or it knew your current location, or it knew the temperature outside. For example. So actually having some context and so on makes it more intelligent with its suggestions. If you turn cruise control on the motorway and we know the destination is an hour away, we know this is potentially a time when a productivity skill could wake up and suggest maybe you reach out and have a phone call with someone who we know is available because we've checked their availability beforehand. So this integration on the device and the ecosystem is really important. It's not taking Cortana, putting it in a device, and it's just behaving the same way as it would do on a PC or an Invoke speaker. Another one is handoff to other assistants. So for certain domains of knowledge, if you ask about weather, for example, maybe you don't have weather data. So actually, therefore, you may wish to hand that question off certain domains to another assistant, like Cortana or Alexa or Google, to actually get them to answer, and then you respond back. So that ability for the end user to say, look, my personal assistant is X, I'm using your assistant, I want you two to integrate. So that's another key part of it. Another one is integration. So yes, Microsoft left to right, we can do all these pieces, and increasingly on the edge, we're going to do more of them. But if you've already got an existing partnership and investment in another language understanding model, you can plug that in. Same with speech. If you have an existing on-device speech service, you can go ahead and use that. We're not being kind of prescriptive around how that stuff works. So very quickly before we get into kind of code, if you look at the assistant, again, the center of it is a bot, okay, built on the Azure Bot Service and Bot Framework. Your brand, your personality, you go do that work. We then ring that with a set of AI capabilities, things like language and speech that we can hook up. You can swap those things out. Vision is an important one. If a device has some way of taking a photo, it could be in a car, it could take a photo of the cabin to identify people or know how many people there are in the car. Maybe not read my emails out if my wife's in the car or my family's in the car, for example. Of course, we inherit all the good stuff from the bot framework. Devices are here, different channels. And what's key is your virtual assistant can show up in any of those places. You don't have to worry about that. You have to worry about your own device if you're going down that route. And the dispatcher capability is it's a capability in the framework that we released to build. And this addressed a fairly critical problem we had with more advanced scenarios where you would have a language understanding model for your bot, for example. And you'd have Q&A, a general knowledge source as well. And as things got more complex, you'd end up with another Lewis model, maybe for calendar tasks or for booking meetings or for booking travel or booking a restaurant. So you have these different language models, and a question comes in, and you need to reason over all the different Lewis models, for example, to actually call each one and get a score and figure out which component should actually handle that. So the dispatcher capability lets us ingest these various Lewis models and other sources like Q&A and actually build one central dispatching model that helps us understand where we should send that question to. So it actually improves that user experience over a more complex experience. Now, skills are a concept that we are investing in with the virtual assistant strategy to start with. And this is how do we deliver to customers an email, tasks, point of interest, calendar, automotive capabilities in a bot and allow a parent bot to go and call those capabilities. So each of these skills look and feel just like a bot. They have a Lewis model, they have dialogue, and they have color code in there. And we've done the work around how we can invoke a skill, activate a skill, and sort of transfer messages while that skill is still activated. One of the demos, if the Wi-Fi holds up, security is a bit of a challenge. If I'm your assistant and you have Google Calendar and Microsoft Office 365 for email, for example, if I say what's in my calendar, I'm going to activate the calendar skill. And the calendar skill is going to go, I need a token. Now, we don't want each of these skills handling their own tokens because you have to sign in each skill and it would get a mess. So actually, we have a protocol where it can communicate back to the parent bot and say, hey, I want an Active Directory token or a Google token. And the assistant will then prompt a user for a token, store it securely, and refresh it in the future, and then pass it back. If it's already linked, then it's cached and it's passed through. So we have a way of doing the auth, and you should see that all working. So we've made available an initial preview. We have the Lewis models for mail, tasks, point of interest, and calendar, so the communication pre-built domain. We've also written the code against Graph, and the Google code isn't quite in the repo yet. It's not wired up. We need to make some config changes. So again, you can take a bot, which is pretty simple, and snap in these skills, and then have calendar and email and other capabilities in there. Linked accounts is the feature that lets us do that. You've got knowledge sources, and then the same linked accounts has to work. If you link Cortana to your assistant, you need tokens as well. So this is what we're going after with the virtual assistant, and we've delivered the first pass of this yesterday. So with that, just to kind of very quickly run through, and I've got an hour or so before my next presentation, but just to run through the process, we've got all this cognitive services here: content moderator, Lewis, Q&A maker, translator. We've got the channels that you see. We use the bot service, messages come in. The virtual assistant has a middleware component for telemetry, so you get a Power BI dashboard around what people are doing and users and so on. Event processing. If a device is turned on and it changes a navigation destination, an event is sent, and we store the location for future contextual awareness. So the eventing mechanism is like a whisper back channel for the assistant. Content moderation, identifying inappropriate material or sensitive information. We can do that here. And the skills each have a Lewis language model, and those Lewis models are actually ingested by the dispatcher and trained to create a unified place where we can then identify which skill are we going to go and invoke. We then deliver a number of dialogues out of the box, things like enabling interruptions, so interrupting an active conversation, onboarding, Q&A, and so on. And you plug in your APIs and your services on the back end. So that gives you an idea of the flow, and we've got linked accounts at the end. So let me just switch across to here. And this should be number 7. So when we're about to demo, you should be able to demo it in about 10 to 15 minutes yourself. You go to a GitHub repo, you clone it. There's an MS Bot deploy tool, and it creates all the Lewis services, trains the dispatcher, configures all the pieces. You hit F5. You've got to do some manual config entries, just copying and pasting for the skills to point to your environment. I think we're going to automate that by the end of the week, so it'll get a little bit easier. So you can see here we've actually created, a bunch of capabilities. Actually in Azure that have been pre-configured. And if I go into Visual Studio, you'll see the project is here. And if I just collapse this, we have the various Lewis models for the base bot. There's a special skill dialog that we've written, which, based on knowing we need to activate a skill, will load the skill, will send a begin message to the skill, and then pass the utterance and the Lewis result to the skill, and it will then get working with passing it through. So in the interest of time, let me try and demo. So this is a fully working bot. I have not made any code changes to this whatsoever. So what it should do when I start the conversation is it gives me an introduction message, and there is a simple kind of onboarding flow. You can take that and then you extend that as you see fit. So I'll just say my name's Darren, and I'm going to say London for whatever. I'm going to go ahead and go great. And actually, it's telling me that I can do more. If you link your accounts to me, then I can do calendar stuff and email stuff for you. But I'm going to ignore that because I don't follow instructions. So if I say find email from Lauren, which is an email skill in this case, what you're going to see, if I've configured it correctly, down here, we're forwarding to the email skill. So we've actually identified that utterance needs activation of a skill. And again, you can also see that it's activated the skill and it's received a token request. So the skill's gone, give me a token so I can go and do this work. But we haven't got a token because I didn't follow linked accounts. Now, I could click this button and authenticate, and it would be fine. But if I'm in a car and I'm on voice, I can't really type a username and a password in through my voice. That's not going to work too well. Hence the value of linked accounts. So if I go to this web page, what you should see, I'll just refresh it, is here are all of the accounts I can link to my assistant. You've got the Active Directory one here. You've got Spotify, Google, Todoist. So this is you giving permission to your assistant to be able to go and do that. So if I go ahead and click sign in, it will go ahead and it will do the Microsoft sign in this case, or it's got a special URL. It should authenticate. It will probably do it without any prompts if the network's working, because I'm already signed in. You now see I'm online, which is pretty cool. And this is hard stuff to get working yourself. So if I go ahead now and say find email from Lauren, hopefully, network permitting. Actually, I know, let me just do that one time. Because actually it was prompting, it was still waiting for authentication. So let me just try it again. I may restart the conversation. Okay, let me That's a bug on our side. Let me just quickly do this, because it's sat there waiting for authentication, which I've done externally. So if I now say find email from Lauren, we have an email bot, a skill with a Lewis model, with all the dialogues for finding email and sending email and forwarding email and all the rest of it. And right away, a couple of things have happened. I've said find email from Lauren. I haven't said what the surname is there. But actually, Lauren's in my team, so therefore she's within my group of people that I communicate with regularly. So the graph has resolved Lauren to actually Lauren Mills in that case. And you can see here that actually it's brought back kind of a bunch of emails there. Again, I've just plugged this skill in through configuration. And to show you the configuration, which I didn't do before, to plug this skill in, if I can actually use the right Visual Studio instance, if I go to appsettings.config, you'll see each skill is actually registered in here. So I'm providing the DLL of the skill, the connection name, a description, and providing the Lewis model information in there. So that's all I've had to do to plug in email capabilities in that case. So I can go back to that demo. I'm going to cancel out of that. And let's say move my meeting. So again, this is a calendar scenario using the Office graph again. This will use the Google APIs. We have it working. We just did some configuration stuff we needed to get working. And you can see it's saying, well, what meeting do you want to adjust? Give me the name or give me the time. So I'm going to go ahead and say this Thursday at 1 p.m. So this is the power of Lewis and the date time kind of entity. So I've said this Thursday at 1 p.m. I haven't typed in a date time with slashes in that the .NET date time can pass. And actually this Thursday at 1 p.m. And it looks like Noelle has cancelled the meeting. I was supposed to be in with her this Thursday at 1. I wonder why that is. And I can scroll across and I can kind of see the meeting there. So that's another skill that I've been able to invoke. And then the final one, just to show you, is a point of interest skill. So again, we have a navigation Lewis model that's been trained with a lot of data to actually allow you to drive me somewhere, find this, this place and this place along my route. So I'm going to keep it easy and say find Starbucks. So that's going to invoke the point of interest skill, which out of the box uses Azure Maps, which uses TomTom data under the covers. You can plug in your own data source and navigation sources. We give you the source code for all this, so you can do it. And actually, it's in Redmond, and it's found a Starbucks. But imagine a device that actually is moving, and you're going somewhere. That device should signal context about the location, for example. So just to simulate this before we have a fancier test tool, is I'm going to send an event. So I'm going to say /event. I'm going to send a lat long reference as a location. And you'll see here, the assistant has received a known event and stored that in contextual information. So if I now say, find a Starbucks, and I can be fancier with my searches, what it should do, because I've given that extra contextual information, it should find one in Orlando. So that lat long, if I pasted the right one in, is Starbucks in another environment. So we've got that way of passing parameters across and making that stuff work. So I think there's a few other examples I could show, but before we run out of time, let me go back to my slides. So I want to explain this box. So one of the demos I was really excited about doing is, this is a speech DDK, a device development kit device. So it runs Android, has a microphone array. There's a radial one that would work great in a meeting room scenario, and it has a speaker. So it looks like something from a 60s sci-fi movie. But it runs Android on there. I plug in. We've written a Java application on there that talks to text-to-speech, talks to speech-to-text. It talks to the virtual assistant using the direct line proxy, and then calls text-to-speech on responses. The thing is, it's incredibly sensitive to noise. So basically, it would carry on listening. So I would say something, and there's so much noise, and the Wi-Fi is awful here. So I've had to record some demos in my hotel room using a tethered phone last night, which took a lot longer than I hoped. So the same assistant is being used in this case, straight off of GitHub, which is the public GitHub repo. We can also put custom wake words on here. So you can call this Jim or Fred or Elaine or Lauren or Ryan, and you can say, hey Ryan, what's in my calendar, or move my 4 o'clock to 2 o'clock. It will wake up, it will do speech to text, and it will call the bot. So that's a speech services device development kit that was announced a few months back. You can get these devices from Rubio or use your own devices. So what you should see now is some videos. So if I hit play, let's see, you may need to come closer. We'll see how loud it is.
Welcome to your custom assistant. Now that you're up and running, let's get started.
So this is the onboarding flow.
What is your name?
Darren.
Thanks, Darren. Where are you located?
London.
So that's the onboarding flow that you saw there. Another flow would be the help.
Assistant. I need help.
Help for custom assistant. I am your custom assistant.
That's me.
I can perform a number of tasks through my connected skills. Right now, I can help you with the calendar, email, Syskin point of interest skills, or you can help me do more by creating your own. Here are some actions you can take.
So actually, one of the things that you can't quite hear, this is also using the new neural text-to-speech voices, so far more natural voices than you've actually had before. That was announced yesterday, I believe. So it's actually the latest text-to-speech, which is much more Cortana voice sounding in terms of its quality than the more robotic ones before. So if I play the next one, you've seen these scenarios.
I need help.
So go to the next one. So you see I'm waking it up with the word assistant.
Assistant. I need help.
Right, we try again.
Assistant. What's my meeting summary today?
That's meetings.
Stop building demos at 1 a.m. Have dinner at 2 a.m. Time shift day. Start at midday at 8 a.m. SAIC project.
There we go to the next one.
What's my meeting summary today?
Okay. The other one
Assistant.
is...
Drive me to the Microsoft store.
So, assistant, drive me to the Microsoft store. It's woken up, done that same
I found
POI
the following
scenario.
matches. Microsoft store is located at 8001 South Orange Blossom Trail, Orlando, Florida. 32809 Microsoft store is located at 4200 Conroy Road, Orlando, Florida. 32839.
So that shows the speech integration working with our stack, with a device, with custom wake words and all those good things. One thing I didn't quite show you on the POI skill, it's the last thing, I'll let you go, is actually I say, right, send me directions. So actually one of the things we're doing, it says it's going to take me 6 minutes, there's no delay, awesome. All that's come from the Azure Maps API. But actually, I've said get started. I'm in a car, for example, and we've actually sent an event back. So this is signaling from the assistant to a device saying, go and do something, show something on the screen, or in this case, change the navigation on the car. So if I go ahead and click on that event, the inspector here, you can actually see it's sending an active route directions, it's sending the points along the journey, and also how long the journey will take. At the bottom, it's got length, traffic delay, and all those other good things in there. So that's a way of exchanging these events for devices to do things, and that works kind of both ways in that scenario as well, which is an important aspect of the design. So with that, if I go back to 5, we've seen enough videos. So in terms of getting started today, so we're in preview on the virtual assistant. So we uploaded the source code into the GitHub repo along with the enterprise template, which I spoke about in the last scenario. So if you go to aka.ms/virtual assistant docs, you'll go to the main documentation site where you can find out more information. And there's a form to fill in. We'd love to understand the types of scenarios you're looking at because we're actively working on this. We're going to move fast and break things. We're also going to take feedback of how we prioritize certain skills and certain things along the way. So we want to make sure this works. And we're partnering with a number of customers. Obviously, BMW is one. And the speech services, DDK, if you're interested in building custom wake words into your device, your services, we can absolutely enable that with the DDK. And everything you've seen is built on the Azure Bot Service, the new V4 bot framework that was GA this week, and all the same tooling there. So we are kind of standing on the shoulders of giants in that regard. So with that, I think I'm probably over on time. So all the demos worked, which is good. So hopefully that's given you a kind of good overview of what we're up to with the virtual assistant. I'm around for a bit if anyone's got any questions.